All right, hey y'all. Had an amazing birthday yesterday, and I figured why not just talk about the movie that I went to see on my birthday. So that's what we're gonna do. Let's do it.
I got an excess of black bile, high irascibility, contemplating checking myself into facility, mental ability clearly affected,
Deep in the dumps, down and dejected.
I've been in low power mode. In low power mode. Been in low power mode all year. Thing is time to switch it up to high gear. I've been in low. I've been in low power mode all year. Thing is time to switch it up to high gear.
All right, so The Woman King. This, I'm not going to worry about spoilers. So if you're excited to see The Woman King and you haven't gone to see it already, then, go see it and then come back here. Movies. Film. All right, so I was particularly excited about this film because Viola Davis is from Rhode Island. She's like the one person from Hollywood that we can look to from Rhode Island, and she's a black woman, so I'm just, a complete stan. And it's been so cool to watch her career, but this film converges so many things that I'm interested in, and I knew I was gonna love it, but I was like, let me just see this on my birthday. This is the perfect birthday activity. So the film is written and directed by Gina Prince Blythewood, and if you think that name is familiar, she also wrote and directed Love and Basketball, which is like half of the people I know's like favorite movie. So that is where we're coming from a very successful film back in, I think Love and Basketball was 2000, the year 2000. I would love to talk about it on this podcast, but it's such a classic. It's like one that I don't even think about. So she has the experience here with the writing and the directing, and the actors were so good. Another thing that I'm doing today is like I initially was going to look up reviews and different things and be like, okay, I want to break this down, I want to do this and that, but I just want to talk about my initial reaction because it brought me so much joy. And I know if I go ahead and look at like the mind, maybe if I go ahead and look at all of the things everybody has to say, then it may color my experience, and I'm not ready for that yet. It's also a film that you have to see twice. Like, I'm already dying to see it again. So, okay. So, essentially what we've got going on is the film takes place in I want to say like 1823. So, around the time when the slave trade was thriving from West Africa to Europe into the States. Like it was about the trade of slaves. That was the time. It was like pure colonist time. And so we've heard of this so many times that we know the image on screen of a slave auction. We're used to seeing this. We're especially if you're a Black American, like this is part of our history, but never has it been set in the eyes and the narrative of the Africans. And that's what this film did effortlessly. Like I felt like when I was going in, I was like, this is going to be like a Black Panther Wakanda experience. But it was way more rooted than that. Like you still have a lot of interesting things going on in Black Panther, but this was really, it felt really real. It felt like all these people were very, very real people and were not superhuman, but also were because of their traditions, their beliefs, and their training and the film focused on group, the Ohaji, which is the women warriors who fight for the Dahomey tribe. So there was some conflict within the tribes. There was the Ojo. Oh God, what was it? Ojo tribe. Oyo. There was the Oyo, and there was the Dahomey. So there was some land conflict between the tribes, and then on top of that, they had this added on imposer of the white people coming to sell slaves. And also they explored a bit like the palm oil trade, and the goal was to go with just selling palm oil to avoid selling, brothers and sisters, literal brothers and sisters from these tribes. Like, oh, there's so much to unpack, and so ironically I'm doing a shorter version today, but I feel like I could sit and talk about this movie and like ask questions for a long time. It's instant classic. Okay, so the head of the tribe, the general of the tribe, is Naniska, played by none other than Viola Davis. And we've seen Viola Davis's arms a lot, I would say, throughout the years. She was pretty jacked in How to Get Away with Murder. This woman, the training she must have done, because her abs are looking so fire. Her face, like, there's something about Viola that is very just all encompassing as an actress. And I feel like I don't know what her style was, like if this was method acting, if this was, I don't know, Stanislavski, I don't know, but she was fucking in the zone, in the pocket, in each and every scene. And I will say that her African accent, it was noticeably imperfect, but I felt like it didn't distract me from the overall film, which, for someone from Rhode Island, like, good freaking job. I don't know if she had been exposed to Africa and to accents and to different diasporic languages before this. Like, I wonder how this was for Viola in terms of her own understanding where she comes from. But yeah, so the film was focusing on the Ohaji, which is amazing because when we think about this time in history, we do not think about women warriors. So their presence in the backdrop of the slave trade is already groundbreaking and game changing. It's like, oh, okay, we weren't just like taken from our homes and put in cages and put on boats, and then no, there were people fighting. And yeah, and the other actors in this film did an incredible job. I'll name some of them. Izogi, she played like the second to the general. That was Lashana Lynch, who I've definitely seen stuff. I've seen most of these other actors in other things, and if I wanted to, I would sit here and like look them all up and then like talk about that in the background, but I'm not going to today. So, and we had Aminza, also kind of second to Naniska, played by Sheila Atim. And both of these women warriors were so different from one another and had different roles with the general. Like, Isogi was like more outward facing and more prominent in the training of things, and Aminsa was more like behind the scenes, more of Naniska's like emotional support. And then and the way that the film starts out is this main character, Nawi, she is at home minding her own business, and then someone brings the family brings this old man for her to come and marry. This dude had grays on his face, and I was like, are you kidding me? Like, you can't. Sick. I don't know, because she was 19 and he looked like 45. So when he's like courting her, he she, I forget what is the instigator. You know, she's probably like, no, I don't want to do this. And then he hits her in front of mom and dad. Like, just, he hits her and she strikes back. And it's really badass. And the parents are like, oh, I'm sorry about my daughter. But she's like, no, I'm not doing this. I don't want to be married, whatever. So she goes to, actually, the father gives her as a gift to the king. He's like, I don't know what to do with this child, so here you go. And she finds her way to the women warriors. And that's how we're introduced to the world of the women warriors through her eyes, through Nawi's eyes. And oh, it's beautiful. Like they enter in this first layer, and then it's like you go back to the second layer, and then it's just like women dancing and singing and training, and so badass. All right. I felt like the strength of women in this film was so inspiring. Like back in the day when I was an athlete, I felt like, I don't know, there's a certain confidence you get from physical training. And these women were just so swaggy, like so comfortable because of their skills. And I love that. I think all the time about like how most, I think, women in, you know, in femmes should be carrying like mace or some sort of pepper spray, some sort of weapon with them just to protect yourself, you know? And here we have the women, there's this whole bit about like this piece of rope, and the Nawi at first, she's like, rope isn't a weapon. And then she is like very soon put to shame by Naniska about how rope is like actually extremely important. And yeah, it's a great moment in the film. I won't give it away, but I thought that there was this amazing theme with like weapons in warfare. And there's this one point where Naniska says, they're arrogant and lazy, just like their guns. And I was like, wow, like to call guns lazy, it's interesting because it's like, yeah, a lazy person uses a gun, but to think of a gun as lazy, maybe because it's so easy to use a gun. You know, you just pull it, you just move your finger like half an inch, a centimeter. And so I felt like the rope was interesting, and then Nawi, she had figured out how to make like little gunpowder explosions. You know, she says you don't need a gun to use gunpowder or something like that. And that ends up being a primary tactic in the way that the Dahomey tribe is able to close in on the Oyo's like land and like this kind of conflict. The women of the Ohaji are able to use this gunpowder, this like chemical reaction, instead of actual like hand-to-hand combat or guns. And I was like, that's so dope. At some point, Nawi ties her sword to a piece of rope and like whips it around, and I'm like, damn, that's so smart, you know, like, because hand-to-hand combat is scary. It's like you got to get up in there, and then you got to be, you know, you got to do the damn thing. But if you come in there swinging with a rope on a string, like that's fierce. And the stunt work in this film, I cannot imagine. Like I'm excited to look it up and see how long it took them and all that stuff. The credits had so many stunt people in them, and it was awesome. I'm not a huge video game person, but I felt like there were certain fight scenes where it felt like you were watching a video game, which was so cool because you don't see this representation in video games either. So, and I think a lot of films are doing that these days because games are so prevalent. They're like blending in. They're using gaming effects in films, especially when it comes to like action films. So that was freaking amazing. So one of the rules of the Ohaji is that you cannot like find love. You cannot like have any distractions. And I loved that. I felt like that was so applicable to being a young femme, like growing up in the States and everything. It's like growing up anywhere. It's just like, okay, grow up, get married, have children. And to choose this other path means you have to let go of all of that. And they asked them in the beginning, like the new recruits for the Ohaji, they're like, if anyone, you cannot have romance, children, a life outside of this. So if anyone wants that, you can leave now. And many women left. And it was like, damn, this is, you really have to choose. So what happens is, and it's, I love how like the little love story, it's not really about, like, there's no real, I don't even know if there's any like kissing in there. Like, it's very interesting. So at some point, two Portuguese people come on over in their like doily looking sleeves and their long hair and their little, I don't know, shoes and jackets and shit. And so they come over and they're expecting to do more slave trading. And it's interesting. It's really nuanced. It's really nuanced because it's not just like, okay, I want to give you this for this. It's like, no, there's kind of beautiful tradition among these trading things. Like, you come and you bestow the king with gifts, and you also I'm just remembering this part where like the king says at first, when he first sees this young Portuguese colonizer, I think his name is Sandro or something, Santo, I think it's Santo. They come over and they're like, he speaks with the king. The king speaks back in perfect Portuguese, and Santo says, yeah, your Portuguese is amazing. And later on in the film, the king Gezo, he says, speak my language when you're in my house, like something along these lines. And I was like, damn, so cool to see the African king like putting this Portuguese like colonizer in his place. And so there's many layers of dynamics going on there. But something that happens is there's another character, Malik, who is whose mother was from the Dahomey tribe, and so he's on the colonizing end of things. He's a mulatto. He's got skin looking like mine, but he has the consciousness. I mean, I talk about this so much in my music, so I was like, damn, this is so cool to see it's represented. He has the consciousness of being a person of color, of being on the other side of the cage, let's say. He understands this, and his mother's wish was for him to go and see and be among the Dahomey tribe. And I felt like that was so special and beautiful, because I strongly believe that children of people who come from different backgrounds and traditions and things need to be exposed to both. They really need to be exposed to both. Just living in one world doesn't work, because that's not who you are. And so I loved that his mother's wish was for him to go find who he was. And so there's a little bit of there's some attention that Nawi gets from Malik, and they end up having a conversation and kind of becoming friends. And at a certain point, Nawi gets skipping over so much. This movie was packed, but at some point, Nawi gets captured gets prepared to be sold as a slave. And so there's a point at which Malik helps Nawi, or, well, how he helps her is he purchases her. So it's, I can't even talk about the scene kind of where it happens, but he ends up buying her to help her, which is insane. And she's like, "What, you own me now?" But he's really cool about things. He's like, "Nope, no. Here's this key to this place where we're staying." Like, "No, I'm not trying to do that." And so that's really cool. I thought what was interesting with his character is that there's a point at which, at the very end, his friend has died, his other colonizer friend Santo, and so he can stay or leave. And he decides to leave. He decides to go back. And I felt like, damn, wow, okay, you have the consciousness, you have the understanding, but you don't want to stay and hang out with your people. I was like, that's typical mulatto behavior. You go towards whiteness, you go towards the patriarchy, you go towards what you think is right, what you feel is right, because that's what you've been surrounded by. So I felt like that was well represented in the film. The slave auction as a image in the minds of African Americans. I felt like there was this one scene where the people who have been enslaved, and the Ohaji essentially come to save other Ohaji and release these prisoners, these people who are about to be sold. And at one point, somebody who's released takes fire to the stage, and they spend a minute, not a minute, but like they spend some time there just having him walk across that like platform and burn it up. And it was wonderful. It was like, oh, so vindictive. It was almost like Afrofuturist to have this particular scene, because we've seen that freaking stage, that that auction block. We've seen it so often, but to see a person who was enslaved taking it down, burning it down, it's so symbolic and incredible. And I loved also the tradition. Now, I don't know that much about Ifa, for instance, or some of these like traditional African religions and rituals. But for instance, when the Ohaji were fighting, they would, once one of their own was killed, then they would cover them and place a little like figurine on the head. And I didn't understand it, but I saw it and I was like, there is meaning behind this. They also had altars to pray to, or to honor the dead. And I felt like, damn, well, I mean, I don't know, we have graveyards, but it just doesn't feel the same to pray to the spirits of the ones who have passed. It was so cool. Like, and all of these moments that are packed with symbolism, and that you can really debrief, like they were not long moments. Like, it just naturally is part of the fabric of the film. So that was really cool. And then, okay, this is where I'm really giving a lot away. The general Naniska, she has during her like career as a general, at one point she was captured by the Oyo tribe, and she was raped by its leader again and again. And she escaped, but when she escaped, she was pregnant. And the way that they tell this story, I felt was very well done. Similar to Black people in the States, we don't want to see Black people getting killed on screen again and again. It's not healthy for us, and it's not good for us. And I feel as though, things can be re-triggered. And I feel like that was very much considered in this film, because there is kind of like quick blurry moment or two where you know what it's alluding to, but you don't know how it all fits together. And so it's not like you see her getting raped necessarily. You see that, but you don't, it's not a explicit thing, which I felt was very important. And the majority of what happens is told through Naniska's retelling. So they don't rely on film for that, and I think that that's really responsible to those who have been sexually assaulted and raped. Now, Naui is an orphan, and we find this out later on in the film. Now, at first, when Niska sees Naui, she's a little bit of a punk. And so she's like, I've got my eye on you. Like, you're obviously very talented, but you're annoying too. But she's coming up with these like gun explosion things. She's coming up with some really great tactics and doing some really great warrior things. So then you find out that Naniska, so obviously there's this rule that like you can't have sex, you can't have children, you can't reproduce as as being part of the Ohaji. And so Naniska knew that this was the case and didn't want to break the rules and was so ashamed. And I felt like that shame was written in there without being talked about. But she feels so ashamed by being pregnant with this child that she ends up delivering it and asking Aminza to get rid of it so that she can be accepted as the Ohaji, which is crazy to me because I'm like, this is a sisterhood. Like they would understand that you got raped against your will and that this child came in against your will. But tradition, that's how it goes. And so she doesn't say anything about ever having this kid. And then at some point she looks at Naui's back at her shoulder and she sees this scar there. And she sees this scar, and later on she finds out that Naui was an orphan. So, lo and behold, Aminsa had given her to an orphanage, and bada bing, bada boom, here we go. Naui is Naniska's child. And you know how we find out? She breaks off part of a shark tooth necklace that she was wearing and makes a little cut in the baby's shoulder and puts the tooth in there. So, it's a little scary to think about that happening to a baby, but it's also so brilliant and smart and like, oh my God, I just love, it's almost like traditional technology. Like, I don't know. I loved that. So this moment is so dramatic when you find out that Naui is the child of Naniska. The drama, everything is written so well. And for a 2 hour and 15-minute movie, this I felt like it kept moving the whole time. There was never a dull moment. My eyes were like eating it up. I loved it. Let's see. Was there anything else that I wanted to mention here? No, I think I hit all the major points that I was like, oh my God, this is so interesting to see. I also was imagining, like, I remember, I think it's called Hotel Rwanda, it was like the African movie that we watched in high school. Don Cheadle was in it. It was like the one. And it's important, to understand these stories. But I think about the kids today, and I think about they have Black Panther, they have the Woman King, they have such strong cultural references for Africa and for like the motherland in ways that we didn't have, and it's beautiful. I'm really happy that these stories are getting told, and these are our, I mean, if you're a black person, like these are your ancestors. And so in the movie, when they talk about ancestors, you can feel a part of that, you can feel that. So, oh my God, was it a spiritual experience? Probably, because it was phenomenal. I'm definitely going to go see this film again. Well, I don't know if it's in theaters anymore, but I don't know. This is one that I want to just buy and own. And soon I'm going to look at criticism, at other things. I heard that the costume design, for instance, was a little bit like inaccurate historically. But I did see that there was a historical consultant in the credits of this film, and I do think that they put a lot of work in that field. So, and then some people just like don't like a movie, and some people are like, well, this is maybe historically inaccurate. So I'm interested in picking apart the more like how real and how fictionalized is this. But in any case, I'm just so happy this movie exists. Thank you to everyone involved. You not only gave us something that we'll never forget within the canon, with an OG Rhode Islander, by the way, but you also made us see our strength, and we don't see physical woman strength depicted very often at this level. So shoot, with Queen Latifah and the Equalizer and Viola Davis as the Woman King, like I'm living in that world, and it's awesome. All right, that's going to wrap it up for our film section, and we'll do a little closeout coming back home. Hey, listen, sometimes you gotta check in with yourself. Okay, so I just want to thank you all so much for the birthday wishes, for the birthday love. And yeah, I'm coming back to myself, and it feels really, really good. And I know I'm on a high because it's my birthday, and I've really set myself up to receive a lot of blessings and love this year in ways that I haven't in former years. But also knowing that all the work that I've done over the past year has helped me to be open to receiving. It feels good. It feels like I'm tasting the fruits of the labor, and I haven't felt that in a really long time. And I feel like this was my best birthday ever. So thank you to all those involved. I don't know. You experience rejection, and sometimes you get scared of wanting things for yourself. So that was where I was at, but I feel like I'm coming out of that, and I feel like, I don't know, I've been looking at a lot of pictures of myself as a younger kid, and remembering how it was to be a kid, and I feel like, damn, I've said no to this child, like to my inner child, so much, like, no, you don't deserve that, you don't deserve that, you don't deserve that. But now it's time to say yes. It's time to let go of all of that like negative self-parenting, and be like, okay, no, life is short. We don't know what comes tomorrow, so live for today. And yeah, and I really, my mom, friends, I really think you, Breezy, like, you all helped me. You've helped me become a healthier person. So thank you so much. That is like a big birthday wish granted. And yeah, we're going to continue Low Power Mode podcast. Shoot, this is like, yeah, like there's some momentum here. I'm loving it. I also love this relationship, this being able to be my authentic self and you taking the time to hear me. I don't know. I'm very appreciative. So thank you so much. Sending everyone so much love. And until next week.
I've been in low power mode. In low power mode. Been in low power mode all year. Think it's time to switch it up to high gear. I've been in low. I've been in low power mode all year. Think it's time to switch it up to high gear.